Good morning, American Night here. This has been a little while since I've recorded. I need to get back to a regularly scheduled message out to you guys. It's been a busy year, going through a lot with work has been busy, which is a good thing. Recently got a pretty substantial raise, which was nice. I'm staying busier than ever at work, so um, that's been good. Been spending a little more time with my parents because, well, my mom's doing pretty well. She turns 70 this year. My dad turns 75 this year, and his health is a little bit, I don't know. My brother and I were just talking about it. My brother just visited from Arkansas, and we're kind of wondering, about my dad, about time frame and all, because it just seems like his memory is getting worse and worse and worse. We're seeing progressive worsening of his memory. It's not just that; he's just had a lot of little physical things going on with falls and stuff, and we're just kind of starting to wonder, And I hate thinking that way, but it's just concern, and we just want to make sure that they're my parents are taken care of, and um, so I'm spending a little more time with them on the weekends. I wanted to put out a video because I don't want to sound unsympathetic to people, but I'm just seeing a lot of video posts out here these days with Americans whining about their personal finances and things online. And I understand it has gotten a lot more expensive out here. There's no question that things have gotten a lot more expensive, but unfortunately, typically whining doesn't accomplish anything. You need a plan. You need a plan. How are you going to get yourself out of your current situation? And that could take a lot of different forms. If you find yourself swallowed up by a lot of unsecured debt, a lot of Americans have too much credit card debt. Um, there are some solutions to that, not just bankruptcy. There are companies out there that will help you deal with the debt. Now, your credit may take a hit doing that, but you can have they help make arrangements with the credit card companies. They may get the balances reduced. They'll put you on a payment plan and get those things knocked off, because so many people out here with these credit cards are just making minimum payments, and you're going to be making those payments forever. It's not going to get the balance is not going to go anywhere if you're making minimum payments. I work in finance, by the way. I'm not going to get I can't give financial advice but I've got experience in this area with things. So this is not financial advice, because in order to give financial advice, we have to know a person's specific financial situation. But this is just general, broad financial information, not for anyone's particular specific financial situation. So if you find yourself in debt and you're just struggling to get out of it, that could be an option. You could look at a couple of different companies out there that specialize in that. Now, you can do a lot of this on your own. Um, it's just going to take a little more legwork for you. It could save you some money if you do it on your own. You can call each of your creditors and try to make arrangements for, debt settlement with them. Um, or you can contact the company and have this company do it for you. They will tell you to stop making your credit card payments. They'll tell you to stop making payments on all of it, all of the debts that you enroll. Now, you can only enroll unsecured debt, credit cards, lines of credit, things like that. Not home equity lines of credit, but unsecured debt, right? So you can't do this with your car, you can't do this with your house, but unsecured debt you can do this with. So, um, if you feel like you are not making enough money. And this is, I think, where a lot of people's problem is these days. People just aren't making enough. I get that. And I think you need to probably make some adjustments, some temporary adjustments. Um, you got to really look at your budget. Look where is your money going right now? A lot of people, if you're renting, rents have really dramatically increased over the last 5 to 10 years. Um, so you may want to either consider getting a roommate where you can split rent, or um, even consider moving in with family temporarily until you can develop some skills. And that's the second part of this, um, that will earn you a higher income in the marketplace. I hear a lot of these people online complaining about the minimum wage, minimum wage, minimum wage. Look, it doesn't matter what that number is. It doesn't matter what minimum wage is. If they set minimum wage to $50 an hour and you make $50 an hour, but that's minimum wage, you're going to still be struggling because the cost of everything would go dramatically higher, and then you would still be struggling. The what people need is to earn multiples of whatever the minimum wage number is. So the goal shouldn't be to increase the minimum wage rate. To me, the minimum wage number is irrelevant, really, because you need to earn multiples of whatever that number is. So maybe in terms of rules of thumb, what I would say is, okay, let's say minimum wage was it 9.25 an hour? I think something like that. Something like that. I think it's like 9.25 an hour. So let's just say someone's making $12 an hour, so they're making roughly about 125%, 1.25 times minimum wage. I would stress to them, try make it a goal to get up to 2 times minimum wage. Get it up to 18.50. 2 times minimum wage. You're still going to be, it's still not a lot of money. I'm going to be honest. 2 times minimum wage is still not much, but you would immediately begin to feel some relief, probably a little bit more flex, but don't use that as an excuse to go out and start blowing a bunch more money. That's a lot of people's problems, is that they'll get raises, they get more money, but they go out and blow it. And it's like, you got try to keep your standard of living about the same. Some of your costs are probably going to will increase over time. Food prices have gone up, rents have gone up, all that stuff's gone up. But people will go out and start running up credit cards, or go start taking lavish vacations and stuff right off the bat, and that's not a good way to start. Once you get to making, now you need to try to think to yourself, how can I get myself to 3 times minimum wage, 4 times minimum wage, maybe even 5 times minimum wage? Some people make that, or more. Right now with my raise, let me think, what am I making an hour now? I'm so I'm thinking, so I'm probably roughly about roughly something around a little over that, probably between 4 and 5 probably times minimum wage. So, but you just have to figure out how to make, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. You can go to college, your standard traditional college degree, but it's going to take a few years to get through that. It's going to take even once you get the degree, it's going to take a few years of experience to really get to making some decent money. So that's kind of a low, it's a slow way of getting through it. You can also go to a trade school or community college and learn a skill. You can go and learn something like to be an electrician or a plumber, depending on how old you are. I probably wouldn't recommend this path for someone that's older, But someone, if you're in your late teens, early 20s, maybe even your mid 20s, there is a high demand for tradesmen, for electricians, trained, certified electricians, plumbers, et cetera, et cetera. And they're making a ton of money right now. These people, these trained, certified electricians and plumbers, they are very well compensated these days. And it could also be the type of thing that could eventually you could turn into your own business, which when you get your own business going doing that, then you can really start making some, really big legacy type money, right? So that's I think that's a big part of it, is just people want to be given a certain standard of living. They don't want to go out and earn it. And I'm kind and it's like, I mean, I know people are working and they're working hard, but if you don't have knowledge or skill sets that command a higher wage, then you're going to be stuck making that lower wage. And even if the government raises minimum wage, you're still going to be struggling. So the answer is not a higher minimum wage. The answer to the question is, how do you get to making more multiples of minimum wage? You should be setting it. I would be setting myself, if I was 20 years old, I would be setting myself a goal to, I want to earn 5 times minimum wage. 5 times. And go out there and figure out what kind of jobs are out there that pay that amount of money. Learn what skills are needed, what knowledge and skill sets are needed to get those kinds of jobs, and go to it. And you may not make that immediately after getting through school, but they may start you at 3 times minimum wage. But then you're just gonna, but then with experience, and as you start gaining, becoming more proficient in your trade or skill, you'll get there. You can get there, and maybe even more. So people got to stop whining and start learning. I am sympathetic to the situation, because it's not as easy as it once was. I do think things were easier in some ways for the boomer generation. Gen X, my generation kind of got shafted a little bit in some ways. We were kind of that in between generation where the pensions were fading out. I'm a little too young to have really gotten into a job that had a pension. By the time I got out of college, pensions had pretty much were only held by government jobs at that point. And we went to the 401k system. The boomers had the benefit of pensions, which has really been beneficial for my parents. My parents, they each get Social Security, but they also have 4 pension payments. So they're doing just fine. They got plenty of income coming in. Their house is paid for, everything's paid for, so it's just, you know, they've that's been really very helpful for them. My generation, Gen X, doesn't have those pensions for the most part, unless you were military or in the government doing something. Um, so we're going to be relying on Social Security and what money we set aside, and a lot of Gen Xers have not done well with that. We're going to be hurting in 10, 15 years. Gen X is going to want to retire, and they're just not going to have the money to do it. Social Security, even if they maintain the Social Security program, I've heard, of course, everybody's mostly heard that the program's running out of money. I don't think the government will allow that program to die, because it would just be political suicide. But but so some people were concerned about it. I don't think Social Security is going anywhere. Um, they may have to make some tweaks to it, but I don't think they're going to reduce benefits. I think they're going to have to remove the cap. That's one thing that I think that needs to happen with Social Security. They're going to have to eliminate the cap. I don't if most people, some people may not know what I'm talking about. With Social Security, I think it's around the first $170,000 of your income gets taxed for Social Security. But that what that means is that these high income earners, like doctors, that are let's say a doctor is making $500,000 a year. Well, he only pays Social Security tax on the first 170,000. So $330,000 of his income does not get taxed for Social Security. I think that's going to have to go away. I think they're going to basically have to turn Social Security tax into a flat tax on all earned income, or at least raise it a lot higher, um, so that all of the earned income is getting that would shore up Social Security quite a bit. Just that one move. And that's, by the way, that's a position that the Democrats have typically supported. Republicans are opposed to. I typically vote Republican. I think the Republicans need to rethink that. If I was going to try to sell it to the Republicans, I would say, look, you're just making it a flat tax. It's just becoming a flat tax, and usually Republicans support flat taxes, but for some reason here they don't. And I'm like, that's all you're doing is making Social Security flat tax. It helps shore up the program. It's gonna help make it easier to make those payments going forward. Now the Boomer generation is going to start passing away. They're getting older, approaching the end of life, right? Even though people are living longer now than they ever have before, and as that big boomer generation goes on, it might be the Social Security thing might get a little bit easier to manage, even though we don't have quite as many people paying into it as we used to. In terms of number of people paying in, is how many people are taking out. The whole point of my video today, though, is we've got to stop whining. It's like America. I mean, I'm kind of getting. It's kind of getting old. It's getting old hearing it. There's no point in whining about it. That's not going to help anything. Socialism is not going to help either. That's not a good strategy. What Americans need to do is realize I'm responsible for myself. I would not look to Washington D.C. to solve your problems. That's just that's a joke. I would not count on Washington D.C. to solve your problems. You need to look into career paths. You need to look into education, skills, and trades that you might be able to learn. Things that you can learn affordably. I wouldn't take out a lot of student loans, unless you're coming right out of college, right out of high school right now, and maybe you want to be a doctor or another high-paid professional. If you've got the academic study skills and the strong background to do something like that, more power to you. I think people that do have the ability to do that and are desiring to do that should have the economic backing to be able to complete that education. Doctors make a ton of money. We've got some doctors as clients, at work, so I know approximately how much doctors make, and it can range anywhere from 400 to over $1 million a year. We've had some specialists that are in that ballpark. Yeah. I just really want Americans to take the bull by the horns. We Americans are supposed to have this grit and this can-do attitude, and I feel like we've probably spoiled the younger generations a little too much. I think that's part of it. I'm a little bit worried about my daughters at times, but for that very reason, I feel like maybe we should have put more responsibility on them as they were coming along, because it just feels like they're just expecting things to kind of fall into their lap a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, you have to go out there and earn it. It's like, if you want a good quality of life, you're going to have to go out there and learn how to do something, how to increase your marketplace value, basically. You know, I would also encourage most young people. This is kind of an out of the box thing. I don't usually, but especially if you're a creative type person, this was always my challenge. Is that I'm very much an inside the box thinker, and I had thought about wanting to start a business. When I was younger, I kicked that idea around, but I'm just not a creative type, and I do feel like people that have that creative um, that are more creative have a better shot of creating something, a successful business. But building a business is not easy either. But I think if you have certain skills, tech skills, trade skills, you can build a successful business, and you don't have to. We've had business owners that were, I've seen business owners that you would never have guessed that they were multimillionaires. Um, if you met them in person, they're just average people. You would never guess it. Sometimes they're even some of these people I've met are, you kind of meet them and they seem a little uneducated, but they know how to do certain things, and they've built successful businesses behind those things, and they're multimillionaires. So I've known specifically people in roofing, have had roofing companies. I knew a guy that had a business that did asphalt, like paved parking lots and things like that. Um, some of these guys, you would never know it in a million years that they were wealthy people, and but they've built their business, and now it's like they're, and the good thing about this too is that business that they've built, they can, a lot of them will try to sell it. They may sell it. They may bring their kids in on it, and teach it to their kids, and hand it down to their children. Sometimes they do that. They may have enough money to retire on. They don't really need to sell the business. They would prefer to hand it down to their children. Anyway, it's just some things I'm thinking about. We gotta stop whining and start learning. I think one of the reasons, you know China has been so successful here recently is because they have put a lot of they've pushed their kids on learning. I'll never forget. I walked into one little Chinese restaurant. This was a few years back. I walked into a Chinese place one time, and there was a little girl sitting at a table, little Chinese girl sitting there at the table. She was doing her homework. She had a book open, a pencil and paper. She was sitting there doing homework, and I walked in. She gets up and comes to the cash register, and she rang up the whole thing for me, took care of it. The parents are in the back cooking. This little 8-year-old kid rang me up. It was kind of crazy, and um but I'm just sitting there thinking, and I'm looking at this, and I'm just like, this kid's sitting there diligently doing their homework. American kids were, we've just got to start working, and people don't want to work. People don't want to learn. People don't want to read. They don't want to do anything. And I see a lot of these young people, they can barely write. It's like, they took cursive out of the schools. I think I may have talked about that before. It's like, but it's not even about cursive. It's their handwriting is so sloppy. And it's like, I mean, I'm concerned about that. Even though a lot of it's just because they're typing and everything more, but still, you don't want to have just terrible handwriting. It's like, you need to be able to handwrite. You need to be able to write things on, by hand. Um, I feel like in a lot of ways we've kind of gone backwards here in America. educationally. We're too reliant on computers, and I mean, computers have a place, but you need to be able to read. You need to be able to do things like actual hardcover books. Actual books. Um, I don't know. A lot of this is I've seen this coming for a couple of decades, a few decades. I had a friend in high school. Actually, I first met him in third grade. We were in the same third grade class, and early on in elementary school, he was always the smartest kid in the class. He always won the spelling bee. He was always the smartest kid. And then the original Nintendo came out. This is like mid 80s, 86, 87, around 86, I think, 85, 86, somewhere in that ballpark. And we all started getting into Nintendo. And this kid was no exception. I went to his house for his birthday party once, for a birthday party, and he had just stacks of NES games. And he just got to playing video games all the time. And all of a sudden, it wasn't long either. He wasn't the top student in our class anymore. Grades started slipping. He wasn't winning the spelling bees anymore. He everything started slipping. And a lot of that is just because of these stupid games and uh, screens, and it's like we've got to get our kids reading and being more responsible just in general. Anyway, these are my thoughts on things. I hope I didn't offend anybody. I wasn't trying to be offensive. I'm actually trying to put some good advice out here into the universe, just so hopefully someone will see this and give some thought to what I'm saying. Realize maybe they need to make some changes. They need to, pick themselves up by their bootstraps. I hate to say that, but it's like there's some truth to that. It's like it hasn't always been easy here in the United States. Back in the 1800s, it was a hard place to eke out to survive. Back in the we had the Great Depression back in the 1930s. Very difficult environment for people. That we managed to be victorious in World War II, and we had a big economic boom because of all of that, and of course the automobiles and everything that came, and all of that. But the further away we get from World War II, the more the world's going back to more of a less of a superpower, one dominant player. It's more even, the power across the world right now. I think America is not can't just do whatever it wants to do. I'm really tired of all of the international stuff. We've got to start focusing on our country. I'm tired. It's not for me. It's not even just everybody's like Israel. Israel's just one of them. We've been sending money to every country around the planet, and it's like we've got to stop. We have to stop. you know, we went. Nixon went to China and opened up China, and look where we are now. All of our jobs left our country and went over there. We've got to stop dealing. I'm not saying we want to be completely isolationist. We should still be willing to trade with other countries, but we need to start taking care of business here. And anyway, that's what I'm thinking about today. I've got like a little over 2 months before I have to take this, before I'm taking the CFP exam, and I'm in the estate planning section right now, and I don't know how this is going to go. I turned 50 a week or so ago, and I'm feeling it, and I'm having a hard time getting myself motivated with some of this stuff, but we'll see how we do. Anyway, you guys have a great day. American Knight signing out.